Hello, everyone. This is Connie Amos-Parsons, owner and CEO of At Your Service Events Planner LLC with offices in Alexandria, Virginia, and Chevy Chase, Maryland. Welcome tonight to a segment on leadership in the federal government. And the subtitle of that is When to Lead Like Women in a Glass Ceiling. When it's time to lead like women in a glass ceiling world. I just wanted to touch bases with you all to let you know I will be having some notes because I have a lot of detail and condensed information and statistics on women in the working field. So I will be using some notes. I hope you don't mind that. But anyway, I hope you will enjoy it and stay tuned and share it with others. And if you have any questions, feel free to write it down. If I can't get back in touch with you as soon as this over, because I have about another hour commute back home, I will respond to you this evening. But anyway, the first thing I wanted to tell you about statistics on women in the workforce. There's almost 51% of women of the U.S. population, 50.8%. And women are more likely to earn a bachelor's degree by the age of 29 than men are. We have 34% of women that have earned bachelor's degrees by the age of 29 versus 26% of men. However, there's a gender wage gap, and women on average earn 79 cents per dollar that men earn. In other words, if men get a dollar, women get 79-cent pay. And that's based on 2014 statistics that men were paid $50,383 on average versus women being paid $39,621. So that's the wage gap. Women hold 52% of professional jobs, but we lag way behind in the workforce in terms of leadership positions. So I'm going to give you some more stats about that in terms of women in leadership. Women are 44% overall in Standard & Poor's 500 labor force, and only 36% of them are first to mid-level managers. The statistics drops down to 25% of executive to senior managers who are women, 20% who are on the board of directors, and only 6% of them are CEOs in S&P 500 labor force. Women of color are only 3.9% of executive or senior level managers, and only 0.4% of CEOs in those companies, in S&P 500 companies. In 2017, Ursula Burns left the CEO position at Xerox Corporation. And as of today, and I checked the stats last week, there are no African American women in Fortune 500 CEO positions. This comes from the statistics of the Women's Leadership Gap by Judith Warner and Daniel Corley. The previous stats came from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2017 stats. My leadership positions that I had in the federal government were I was a team leader and a senior management analyst. I was also a project manager, PMP, and I worked at one of the agencies I worked for that used those skills was Department of Treasury Financial Management Service in conjunction with a partnership on the team with the Social Security Administration in Baltimore. I also worked as a project manager, PMP, at the Department of Agriculture, Information Technology and Services Division, and I helped Kansas City and Washington, D.C. do their performance measures to use for their organization. My leadership training and education, I have a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Maryland, College Park in Human Resources Management and Business, and I have a master's certificate at Johns Hopkins University. I got it in business administration with a minor in finance. I also got a certificate in PMP from the PMI Institute, which was one of the hardest tests I've ever taken. I always continued from the time that I started in the federal government at OPM. I always took as many classes as I could, as many free classes, as well as the government helped me pay some of my courses when I attended college. I took classes of Myers-Briggs, statistics, effective communication, leadership from supervisors, diversity, EEO, contracts, etc. And I wanted to always prepare myself for my next step in the federal government and my next step in promotion in leadership. So the first thing that I have is for topics and subtopics are, do you have the right stuff? Do you have the right stuff? And that is a mindset for success. Are you looking ahead for your future? Are you looking ahead when you're a entry level or a mid-level manager? Are you looking ahead for promotion and for leadership positions? And if so, how do you prepare for it? So I wrote down some things that I thought was very important to everyone, and that would be the list I have here. It's 15 different traits. One is having a positive attitude, knowing that you can succeed, knowing that you can get ahead, having that confidence that you can get ahead. The second one is the stick-to-itiveness, being able to not give up easily, being able to stick with a job and stick with the task until it is complete. The third one is determination. The fourth one is goal setting and focus. The fifth one is strategy, and that by that meaning there is a mission and a vision for the organization. But for you, what strategy are you using to get ahead? Are you looking, starting at the GS7 grade or GS9 or even GS11? What are you looking forward to in terms of getting ahead? And do you have a strategy for that? The next thing is number 6 is foresight. Foresight meaning not only what's happening in your government agency or in your office, but also what's happening at the senior executive level, what's happening in the global economy, what's happening in the U.S. economy that might be affecting the mission and the vision of your particular agency, and how can you fit into that in terms of solving the problem. Independence, working on projects as a individually and being a team player. Everyone loves a team player. Everybody, not only being a team leader, but also being able to roll your sleeves up and being a team player. The eighth thing that I have is drive and grit, and that is uh, don't continue to push ahead, getting up in the morning when you don't feel like going to work or when you don't feel like working on a task and still push through until you become successful. Number 9 is a desire to make a difference in your position. Do you want to stand out? Do you want to make a difference in your organization? And if so, find your niche in terms of how to do it. Number 10 is leadership. Everyone is not a born leader, but there are a lot of leadership classes and courses that you can take that will make you a more effective and more efficient leader. Number 11, have a desire to go the extra mile. And I now, as a owner of my events planning business, wedding events planning business, I always have a desire to not only to meet, but to exceed the expectations of my clients. And that is just something that's inside of me. Number 12, creativity. Think outside of the box. Always try to find a plan B and a plan C. If things don't go well, then have options that you can go to as a leader that you can resolve the organization's problems. Number 13 is having that team spirit as a leader, having that cheerleader spirit and being able to go through the organization and sit down with your employees and your team and being able to be the leader, being able to have that spirit and motivation to push your team. Number 14 is confidence. Confidence comes from within. So, as a leader, we need to have that confidence that we will take charge and be able to make the right decisions. And if we don't, then we know how to resolve the problem, either talking to management or talking to our employees and staff and seeing what we can do to right it. Because nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes and make errors in judgment. Number 15 is assertiveness, um, being able to withstand position, being able to someone to tell you that it won't work this way, or we've already always done it that way. Being able to know that you've done your research, you've done your studies, you've done work with your team, and that this is the way that you would like to present this to senior management, and then being able to support your decision, being assertive with the decisions that you make, not passive. Um, Number two, what does it take to get ahead? And I have down all of number one, plus being able to have your education. When I started in the government years ago, you could not go, it was very difficult to get outside the administrative field unless you had the minimum of a bachelor's degree. So what I did was went back after 2 years of college. I thought I didn't need any more education. So I went back to the University of Maryland after I left Johnson C. Smith, a historically black college and university, and I got my finished up my bachelor's degree at the University of Maryland because I did want to get ahead. Having knowledge, making sure that you have your knowledge and expertise and master the position that you're in and the skills that you need in your particular job. Always having continuous education and learning, making sure that you are a lifelong learner. Every morning just about I get up and I look at LinkedIn, I look at blogs on business. I have the influential LinkedIn members that I look at often, like Damon Johns and others who Warren Buffett and others who I look to and read what they're doing, just to have the knowledge and to always keep abreast of what's going on in not only in the field that you're working in, but also globally. And then mentors. I was lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to have mentors when I was in the federal government, and these were people that I looked up to. They were basically my role models, my business coaches, informally. I wanted to model their behavior. So I had actually three women and one man to be my informal mentor. One was a former mentor, and she was a senior executive, and she retired Virginia. She was at Treasury Department, and she only had a little bit of time with me. I think it was like 3 weeks, 1 hour each. But I wrote down all of the information that she gave me, and I tried to enact that information. Hi, Ann. Um, and also, I had a GS-15 who was getting her SES, and she was able to help me as well as to give me the opportunity to travel and teach. Even though that wasn't my job, but she gave me the opportunity to travel to different places, Austin, Birmingham, San Francisco, Chicago, to be able to teach because she had the confidence in me that I could do the job, even though it wasn't other duties as assigned. And then I also had Mr. Brockenbarrow, and I highly respect him. He's gone now, but he was a senior executive, and it's just the way how smooth he was, how laid back, but he was brilliant. And he was everyone loved him. And I used to just stop him in the hall, or I'd see him and speak to him. And then I would just ask him questions. And that was informal mentoring, but I learned a lot from him. So sometimes we just reach out and get people that we admire that's good in our field, or somebody you might want to transition to that say they want to be a scientist or want to be a chemist or want to be a statistician, and you have a couple of years of college. You want to talk with someone and ask them what is their field like, what's the pros and cons of being in that particular field, and maybe have them mentor you, and you can make a better informed decision. And the next thing is tenacity. Never give up. Always know that you can do a better job. Always have that self confidence that you continue to work hard no matter what the obstacles are. But just, you want to give up sometime. Everybody's human, but just sleep it over, sleep on it, get up the next day and say, I'm going in, I'm going to still continue to do that job. Don't let the job tackle you and beat you down. You always know that you continue to have tenacity and never give up. Talk to someone, talk to your mentor, talk to a colleague that you like and trust. Take a break if you want to. Sometimes you just need a few days off, but come back and then give it 100%. And then the last thing is flexibility. It may not seem to be very important, but we all want to work with teammates and team members, and even managers and supervisors. We want to work with people who are flexible. They have the flexible workplace now, which is wonderful. And you get more done at home. Sometimes people work all day and work hard at home than they do in the office because you have more time. You don't have to commute and you're not exhausted from the commute. So I think that's a wonderful thing. So being flexible, not being stuck in a rut that you can't change your mind, or you can't listen to someone else give you another viewpoint. Have brainstorming sessions. Have that, throw out ideas. Talk to your employees, talk to your staff, talk to someone who's new, who has come in and they might have different ideas. Talk to millennials. They have a great ideas and they are willing to share with you. But always be flexible and have an open mind when it comes to being a great leader. The last thing is I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but having business strategic and financial acumen. By that is, where is the business, the organization going? What is their mission? What is their vision? And what is their strategy? Making sure you talk to your superiors and finding out where they're headed, and usually they always have it written down. And then as a leader, then if you have projects and that you can sync with where their vision and their strategy is, then that will make a big difference in terms of how senior managers look at you, and how that they will give you additional responsibility and then give you promotions. It really is looking at the bottom line of the organization, of the federal government. They have a strategy, looking at the bottom line and how can you work on projects that will get results. I guess I will tell you now, one of the projects that I worked on, I was very proud of, and I wasn't a senior manager at the time, but my supervisor saw something in me and he appointed me as a team leader over 35 managers, and mid-level employees and administrative employees from 3 different cities and 2 different agencies. It was Department of Treasury and also Social Security Administration in Baltimore. We had weekly Wednesday phone calls for 2 years and worked on a teletrace project. What that was briefly is Social Security wanted to resolve a problem. Treasury was the answer to them, helping them resolve the problem. When they converted to mandatory direct deposit, they wanted to know what would happen to checks. If people lose checks or didn't get checks or checks were stolen, how do you resolve that problem so you won't, the government would be losing millions of dollars a year? So I was the team leader on that with 35 people. It was mandatory that we met once a week and had 2-hour meetings. And we improved the process, made it more effective, more efficient. We streamlined it, and we made it, had a database for it. And then we were able to get a Vice President Gore's Award, which was 20 years ago. Vice President Gore's Award, all 35 of us, for making the government more efficient, more effective, and saving taxpayers millions of dollars. It was called the Hammer Award. It got a little tiny hammer, but it meant a lot to us because that was one of the top senior level awards that an organization can get. So it was the bottom line was streamlining the government, make having saving taxpayers millions of money, because if you lose your check, you still get your Social Security check, has to be replaced. But how quickly will you find it? How quickly can the government locate it? So it started at maybe they would find it in 2 days or weeks or months, or sometimes they would never find it. So we streamlined the process so it would be a telephonic process, contact your financial uh, institution, and they would contact Kansas City Treasury Department, and they made that check whole within 2 to 4 business days. So that saves the government time and labor costs, and made the recipient whole. So that's what we did. But that is an example of, at the time I didn't know it, but that's an example of how you have the strategic and financial acumen that you are in sync with the organization's goals. Okay, and that's the bottom line to getting promoted as well. Um, Number three, what matters most on your resume? And years ago, they used to have KSAs, knowledge, skills, abilities, on every position. They had oral communication and then written communication. Now they have you submitting a resume, and what the bottom line to your resume is what you have on your resume should match and define and discuss and describe what the job description entails. That is how managers and supervisors determine how qualified you are. So if the job description asks for A, then you give them A if that's your experience. And then when they interview you, they will what they have now is just a resume, and then they will ask you questions about that. And the other thing is when you're listing what you're doing, make sure you do bullet points or number them, or however you want to do it, of your achievements. Not only, oh, this is what I did in long paragraphs, but just bullet points. I did X, Y, and Z, and this is the bottom line, the results that I had about doing it. I saved the government $1 million. I resolved this problem for management. I made it more cost effective, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you want to show management how you are able to achieve and become results oriented, and what problems can you solve. That is how they will define a leader. Um, Number four is making the right choices. So I used all of my skill set. Some was just, I thought, being a mom, being a wife, having 2 children, raising children, working full time. And then at one time I was going to school full time, working full time, raising 2 kids as well. But those decisions made me more organized, made me think quickly on my feet, because I had to resolve problems and I had to get everything right. So my background and my intuition. So positions I've had, I started off in the government as a secretary in administration. Then I got promoted. I was paralegal specialist. Then I became a management and program analyst. Then I was asked again to teach classes. So I taught EEO classes. And the AD was it disabilities ADA, American Disabilities Act, when it first came out. I was able to teach that in my agency. I was at Walter Reed at the time, and I also taught. The first time I took statistics, I got a D in undergrad because I was taking 16 credits. The second time I took it in grad school, I got an A because I wanted to get better and I understood it more. And I was able to take classes on process improvement program training, and then I liked it so much and I was so good at it that they asked me to teach it. So I taught it Chicago, uh, um, Washington D.C., 500 employees. I taught it Birmingham, Austin, Texas, and San Francisco. And that way, at the time, the strategy and the focus was on streamlining government, making programs more effective and more efficient. So that's what I had an opportunity to do. I also was a broker trainee for when I moved to Detroit for a couple of years. I wanted to learn what finance and investments was all about. So I worked for them for a year to learn about finance and investments, and that helped me a lot when I returned to the federal government in terms of saving and investing in my 401k. So I'm kind of like a jack of Jill of all trades. I like doing different things. I'm interested and curious about a lot of different topics, and I have a lot of hobbies. So I just like to just learn more about just being a well-rounded person, I guess. So I did, as I mentioned before, I was a management project manager, PMP, and I was a team leader, and I taught the process improvement. I was fortunate enough to take one class before Dr. Edward Deming died in process improvement, and he was the man who was a statistician that when he was in his 20s, I believe, he went over to Japan and taught the Japanese how to improve their processes and bounce back after the World War II. So he was in his 80s, I believe, almost 90 when he passed, and I was able to take one of the last classes that he had at GW. So that's basically the background that I had formally to make the right decisions. Um, and as I said, it was a wife and have two children, my daughter Michelle and Andre. And I volunteered in the community in my church, and I also helped with fundraising. My intuition, I used to, when I was in my teens, I guess 18, 19, I used to do pros and cons and making decisions. And then I took a class, it was called WIFMs, What's in It for Me? What's in it for me? And basically, it's a process where you write down your pros, where you write down your cons, and you did make that decision based on that. The facts don't lie. So you have a list of pros and you have a short list of cons. If you're making a decision, you know that looking at this piece of paper or typing it now, you know that the pros or the cons outweigh each other. And that was what I learned in one of my classes. I think it was undergrad, WIFMs, What's in It for Me. WIIFM, and I've never forgotten that, and I still use it today. And I also rely on my gut instinct. Very spiritual, and I have a strong faith, and I just rely on my gut feelings. And if it hits me and I know it's something good, I make the decision based on that. So I've used all of my skills and my personal traits to make good decisions. I made bad decisions too that I regretted, that I didn't listen to my gut. But the thing about it is, now that I know that when you have gut feelings and you pray about it, I do know that that you will make the right decision. Just have to give it some time. And number five is always be ready for the next opportunity. Always be ready. Always have continuous education. Nobody knows everything. Nobody will ever know everything. But try to continue to read blogs, articles, uh, go to networking meetings, talk to other people, have brainstorming sessions, have focus groups that give you feedback, do surveys, whatever you can connect with people. I love LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. It's just the thought leaders that they have. I give my comments back when I have something to say, but I learn so much, and it takes me. I get up in the morning. I do that first social media from say 6:30 to about 8, and then or 9 o'clock, and then I start on the clock because now I've already gone to school basically by reading, and it's free. Um, and I also am on a lot of LinkedIn groups, so that helps me as well. And again, always be ready for the next opportunity. Dress for your next promotion. Continuous education and training all the time. Read. I wrote a book, Peaks, Valleys, and Overcoming the Odds, Stepping Out on Faith and Confidence. And that was from years of experience that I had, but I just didn't have time to sit down to write it, so I finally wrote it. I love to read. Being proactive about your career, being proactive about your health. I know Ann started her 30-day what is it called, smoothie. Always be trying to improve yourself physically, mentally, spiritually. Always try to improve yourself. um, Volunteer on projects. So if you're in the federal government and you volunteer on a project, even though you don't, that's not your job, never say no, I don't want to do it. If you really don't want to be promoted, or you don't want to be looked at as a leader, turn down a job that you're already getting paid. Turn down something that's going to give you more experience and more expertise, and you get to work with a team. And then they would not only see your leadership skills, but they will also see your initiative, how you think, how you make decisions, how you work well with others, and volunteer in your community, and join networking groups. Work with them. Sometimes you may be a little nervous, or you don't want to go, or you shy, whatever. But when you go working in network groups and on a team, or you have commonalities, people get a chance to know you. People do business with people that they know and they trust. And then, that's how we get business. So I found networking very, very, very helpful to me, from the time I was in the federal government to the time I lived in Lynchburg, in networking groups. I've been in BNI, I've been in women's networking groups, and now I'm proud and happy to be a member of BMWOC, Businessmen, Women, and Women of Color. Very helpful to me in being in the business environment. Um, Very thankful to Ann Austin for heading up this a great group that's only a few months old and giving us the opportunity. I really, really love that fact that you give us the opportunity to do this. And Chris as well, helping us. I wasn't able to do it a week ago. I had a big project, just out of town and came back, but I got an opportunity I did write the information I had about mentoring and accountability, and I'm so glad that Chris was able to do that for me. And Interpersonal skills, just be your best. Learn how to accentuate the positive, what strengths that you have, what's your good asset that you have, what you can bring to the table. Everybody's not talkative like I am. Everybody doesn't is not go out and just introduce themselves and pass out business cards. But people get to like you because you show up and you want to be a team player, and you want to be in that particular environment and in that group. And so everybody brings different strengths and different weaknesses to the table, but always know that, interpersonal skills is really a great asset for doing business as well. And the last thing I have, I believe, is dress for your promotion, next promotion. Um, Basically, when you are applying for a position, especially in leadership, you want to start dressing for success, and it really is important. First impressions mean a lot, and you don't have to spend a lot of money on clothes. You can get sales, you can get a lot of things that you don't have to spend a lot. You can wear outfits and buy three pieces for women, and have a skirt and a top and a dress, and still have three pieces. But the point is, invest in yourself if you want to be a leader. Invest in looking the best that you can in grooming, and that is a part of a leadership. And That's the end of part 5. The last one is, I've heard the old saying, you can fake it until you make it. Maybe you can in some fields and some occupations, but I have found that people know when you know and when you don't know. In the federal government, you will be grilled, you will be looked at, everything that you do is going to have a review level. You will have your team members who may know more or may have been there longer, have more expertise in a particular topic. Your supervisor, your senior level, you can't fake it. You cannot fake it, and it's not good to do that. If you don't know something, then um, uh, bone up on it, read up on it, and make sure that you come prepared to do it. So for number 6, you can't fake it until you make it. You will be tested every day. The first thing is be well qualified for the position. Number 2 is be experienced and have the expertise. Number three is be ready to hit the ground running. Just like when you go to grad school, I was shocked. When you go to grad school, the first time you're there, they expect you to have your book the first day, and when you come back to next class, they want you to read two chapters. I was shocked that they keep that same pace until you finish grad school. It's undergrad school is great, but grad school they really test you. People who have doctorate degrees, I can't imagine what you go through, but I know it's very difficult. But ready to hit the ground running is like going to grad school. When you're getting a new job, people expect you. We hired you, we promoted you, and we want you to perform on day one. Uh, the other one is number four is willing to go the extra mile. Always be willing to. You're going to have to sacrifice sometimes, but be willing to hit to go the extra mile because it will pay off in the long run. Have passion. If there's something that you like, it's something that you really enjoy doing, it makes the job so much easier. I think I can remember only two jobs in my career that I didn't like, and I didn't stay long. But I always like to have passion for what I do, and leadership. Have the leadership skills. That's and if you don't have them, then ask to take training. It's nothing wrong with learning to be a leader and the traits of a leader, and being a positive leader who helps others and instills others so that they can be the best that they can be, versus just dictating what to do. Learn from your team, learn from others who are in the job, who have been there a long time. Learn from your team. Dr. Edward Deming said, when you work with others, talk to the workers, the employees who are doing the work. They can tell you some things that can improve the process and reduce costs, but nobody ever asks them. If you don't ever ask your employees and your team, then how would you know what type of feedback you can get? I love the concept about the 360 feedback because oh dear, are you here? Uh-oh, uh-oh. Okay, hi everybody. All right, am I still on? It dropped momentarily. Okay, thank you. I can now see it. Hi, Chris. Hi, Ann. Oh, thank you so much. Does he have any books? Thank you. Love, love, love. Okay, Dr. Edward Deming. Yes, Google him. He has several books. Yes, Google him. He's amazing. He was amazing. Um, Okay, and lessons learned. Make sure that you have lessons learned. What I do now is I used to with my team at the end of each project, I said what went at each meeting, what went well and what didn't go so well. Now it's a wedding and events planner. I do a wedding, event or a wedding, and then we have a meeting, a conference call. So what did we do well? Oh, we did this. We were great. We satisfied the customer. What did we didn't do well? There's always one or two things that we can do better, and make sure that you do that after each event or each project so that way you can learn from other. And I take notes too. I really do. I do go on memo on they used to have Samsung, now I have iPhone, so I have to take notes on that, make sure that I learn from those lessons learned and that we can help everything else. What is the worst thing to do in the government? The worst thing to do in the government, oh my goodness, on my first job, they told me is to be late. And these are personal characteristics. So don't be late, show up on time. DOD, they say show up early. If you show up early, that's on time. And don't be continuously missing days. They would tell us that as long as you do your job, you will get promoted. That was told to me when I first started. And then the other thing is just not saying no, I don't. I mean, if somebody gives you something and it's volunteer and you just tell them, I don't want to do it. If you can't do it for some reason, like you have childcare or you just, just have some reason that you can't do it, then that's fine. But showing initiative and being a team player weighs really, really heavily, especially in DOD. I work for Walter Reed, I work for Navy, Nav Telecom, and I work for Headquarters Marine. And that's how I learned to be organized and structured, and I learned to work as a team. Because after the officers enlisted and then civilians, after we would have a project and it went well, we would go over to the end and we would celebrate and after work. So that to me, being a team player, but not being a team player and turning down assignments and not coming to work and being late for work, then you already have set yourself up for failure because people notice that. So that's the answer to my question. I hope I've answered it for you, Anne. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions? I've been rambling so much and saying a lot. Does anyone have any questions? Anything they want to ask me? Does anybody have anything? Are you still there? Is two people still there? Is okay. If you don't have any more, yep. Okay. So, are there any more questions, or does anyone, Anne or whoever's there? I can't see now. Do you all have any more questions? Well, I tell you what, thank you so much. I appreciate you all tuning in for 40 minutes. Thank you for this opportunity, Ann from Business Men and Women of Color and Austin Tech Inc. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight and listened to me. If you still have questions, feel free to just go ahead and send it to me on the Facebook replay, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. And you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for everything, and have a great evening. Thanks, Ann.